The unusual job description. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse office, creating rivulets that distorted the Manhattan skyline beyond. Elena Martinez clutched her worn purse tighter as she sat across from Mrs. Pemberton, the stern-faced head of household for one of New York's most elusive billionaires. "Let me be perfectly clear, Miss Martinez," Mrs. Pemberton said, her voice crisp as fresh linen. "Mr. Blackwood requires someone with discretion. Your duties will extend beyond typical household management." Elena shifted in her chair, the leather creaking beneath her. At 28, she'd worked enough odd jobs to know when something didn't quite add up. But the salary Mrs. Pemberton had mentioned, triple what she'd made at her last 3 positions combined, kept her seated. "What kind of extensions?" Elena asked carefully. Mrs. Pemberton's lips thinned into something approximating a smile. "Mr. Blackwood is a very busy man. He has social obligations. Sometimes he needs assistance coordinating his personal appointments. You would occasionally be required to pick up his guests, young women, and bring them to wherever he's staying." Elena's stomach turned slightly. "Pick up women?" "His dates, Miss Martinez. Nothing sordid, I assure you. Mr. Blackwood values his privacy and prefers not to give out his addresses directly. You would collect them from agreed-upon locations and escort them safely. You'd also be responsible for the standard household duties, cleaning, organizing, meal preparation when his chef is unavailable." "I see." Elena's mind raced. She thought of her younger brother Miguel, whose medical bills were piling up after his car accident. She thought of her mother's mortgage, 3 months overdue. She thought of her own maxed-out credit cards and empty refrigerator. The position comes with full benefits, lodging in the staff quarters, and a signing bonus of $10,000, Mrs. Pemberton added, reading Elena's hesitation with practiced ease. "Paid upon acceptance." Elena met the older woman's eyes. "When would I start?" 3 days later, Elena moved her few belongings into a surprisingly spacious room in the Blackwood estate in the Hamptons. The main house was a sprawling modern mansion that seemed to grow organically from the cliffs overlooking the Atlantic. Her quarters were in a separate wing, connected by a glass enclosed walkway that offered stunning ocean views. She'd been there for 6 hours before she finally met her employer. Damien Blackwood appeared in the kitchen doorway at precisely 7 p.m., as Mrs. Pemberton had predicted. He was younger than Elena expected, perhaps 35, with dark hair that fell carelessly across his forehead and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than Elena's car. "Miss Martinez." His voice was smooth, controlled. "I trust you're settling in?" "Yes, Mr. Blackwood." "Thank you." He studied her with an intensity that made her want to look away, but she held his gaze. She'd learned long ago not to show weakness in front of powerful men. "Mrs. Pemberton has explained the full scope of your duties?" "She has." "And you have no moral objections?" Elena lifted her chin slightly. "I'm here to do a job, Mr. Blackwood. As long as everything is legal and consensual, your personal life is none of my business." Something flickered in his expression, amusement, perhaps, or approval. "Good. I'll need you to make a pickup tomorrow evening. Details will be sent to your phone." He turned to leave, then paused. "Elena, may I call you Elena?" "Of course." "Welcome to the team." And then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of expensive cologne in his wake. The first assignment. The next evening, Elena stood outside a trendy Soho restaurant, checking the details on her phone for the 3rd time. The woman's name was Sophia Chen, 5'7", wearing a red dress, would be waiting by the bar at 8:30 p.m. Elena had driven into the city in the sleek black Mercedes that came with the position, fighting her nerves the entire way. This felt wrong somehow, like she was facilitating something she didn't quite understand. But the memory of her brother's pale face in the hospital bed steeled her resolve. She entered the restaurant, its dim lighting and ambient electronic music creating an atmosphere of studied coolness. At the bar, a stunning Asian woman in a crimson dress nursed a martini, checking her phone periodically. "Sophia?" Elena approached cautiously. The woman looked up, her perfectly made-up face showing a flash of relief. "You must be from Damien." "Thank God. I was starting to think he'd forgotten." "He sent me to bring you to him," Elena said, trying to sound professional rather than like a glorified chauffeur for a millionaire's dating service. As they walked to the car, Sophia chatted easily. "Is this your first pickup? You seem nervous." "Is it that obvious?" Sophia laughed. a sound like wind chimes. Don't worry, Damien's particular about his privacy, but he's a good guy. Better than most of the men in this city, trust me. She slid into the back seat with practiced grace. How long have you worked for him? This is my second day. Wow. Well, welcome to the Blackwood Circus. There was something in her tone, not quite bitter, but tinged with an emotion Elena couldn't identify. The drive to the Hamptons took nearly 2 hours. Sophia spent most of it on her phone, occasionally making comments about traffic or the weather. As they pulled up to the estate, Elena saw Damien waiting on the front steps, now dressed in dark jeans and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He opened Sophia's door himself, greeting her with a kiss on the cheek that seemed more polite than passionate. Thank you, Elena, he said without looking at her. That will be all. Elena watched them disappear into the house, an odd feeling settling in her chest. Not quite jealousy, she had no claim to this man, but something close to it. Disappointment, maybe. She thought Sophia seemed nice, and the idea of her as just another conquest in Damien Blackwood's rotation left a sour taste in her mouth. She parked the car and returned to her quarters, trying not to think about what was happening in the main house. Patterns and questions. Over the next 3 weeks, Elena settled into a routine. She maintained the house with meticulous care, prepared meals when needed, and twice a week, she picked up a different woman for Damien. There was Jessica, a lawyer with laugh lines around her eyes who talked about her daughter the entire drive. There was Priya, a software engineer who seemed more interested in discussing AI ethics than her date. There was Amanda, a gallery owner who spent the journey in silence, staring out the window with an expression Elena couldn't read. None of them fit the pattern Elena expected. They were successful, intelligent, accomplished women, not the vapid model type she'd assumed would populate a billionaire's dating roster. And strangest of all, they all spoke about Damien with a mix of fondness and something else. Gratitude, maybe? Elena began to notice other oddities. The women rarely stayed overnight. Damien often looked exhausted after their visits, not satisfied. And sometimes, late at night, she could hear him pacing in his study, the sound carrying through the quiet house. Her curiosity finally overcame her professionalism on a Tuesday afternoon. She was organizing Damien's home office, a task Mrs. Pemberton had assigned, when she noticed a locked drawer in his desk. She shouldn't look. She knew she shouldn't. But her fingers were already reaching for the letter opener, jimmying the simple lock with a skill learned from a misspent youth in the Bronx. Inside, she found folders. Dozens of them, each labeled with a woman's name. Her hands trembled as she opened the one marked Sophia Chen. Medical bills. Copies of checks written to NYU Hospital. A letter from a doctor discussing experimental leukemia treatment for a patient named David Chen, Sophia's brother, Elena guessed. She opened another folder. Jessica Williams. Court documents related to a custody battle. More canceled checks. These made out to a law firm. Priya Sharma. Financial records showing payment for her mother's assisted living facility. Elena's mind reeled. These weren't dates. They were. What? Charity cases. But the women clearly cared for Damien, spent time with him. What was happening here? Find anything interesting? Elena spun around, dropping the folder. Damien stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. IMR. Blackwood, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. He walked into the room with measured steps, picking up the scattered papers. No, you shouldn't have. But I suppose it was inevitable. You're too smart not to start asking questions. Elena's heart hammered. She was going to be fired. Or worse. But Damien simply sat on the edge of his desk, studying her with those storm gray eyes. What do you think you've discovered, Elena? I don't. I'm not sure, she admitted. You're helping them. These women. Paying for their family members' medical care, legal fees. But why the dates? Why not just write a check anonymously? A muscle twitched in his jaw. Because no one wants to be charity. They want to feel like they've earned it, that they have some dignity left. He gestured to the folders. These women all work for my companies in various capacities. Good employees who fell on hard times. When they came to me desperate, asking for advances or loans, I made them an arrangement. Spend time with you in exchange for money? Elena couldn't keep the judgment from her voice. His eyes flashed. In exchange for the pretense that we're equals. That they're not just taking a handout from the billionaire boss. We have dinner, we talk, I write a check. They get to tell themselves it's a date, not charity. Their pride stays intact. Elena sat down slowly in the office chair, processing this. But you're still buying their time, their company. Am I? He leaned forward. Or am I giving them a way to help their families without destroying their self-worth? You think Jessica wants to admit she can't afford her custody lawyers? That Sophia needs to beg for her brother's cancer treatment? This way, they can tell themselves they're dating the boss, getting special treatment for personal reasons, not financial desperation. That's... Elena struggled for words. That's actually kind of sad. For everyone involved. Damien laughed, but there was no humor in it. You have no idea. Implications. After the confrontation in his office, something shifted between Elena and Damien. He began spending more time in the parts of the house where she worked, making conversation that went beyond professional pleasantries. She learned he'd inherited his fortune at 23 when his parents died in a sailing accident. That he'd built it into something even larger through tech investments, but found the whole process hollow. That he had a sister somewhere in Europe he hadn't spoken to in 5 years. Why did you really hire me? Elena asked one evening as she prepared dinner. His chef was on vacation, and Damien had requested her arroz con palo, claiming Mrs. Pemberton had mentioned Elena's cooking. He was sitting at the kitchen island, nursing a scotch. Because Mrs. Pemberton said you were desperate enough to take the job and smart enough to do it well. That's blunt. You prefer lies. I prefer honesty, Elena said, stirring the rice. Which is why I'm going to ask you something I probably shouldn't. Why don't you just date someone? For real. The silence stretched so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I did. Once. Her name was Victoria. We were engaged. Elena waited, sensing there was more. She loved who she thought I was. The powerful CEO, the billionaire playboy. When I tried to be real with her, vulnerable, she couldn't handle it. Said I was being weak and disappointing. He took a long drink. I learned that people don't want reality from men like me. They want the fantasy. So I give them a transaction they can understand. Time for money. Clean. Simple. No one gets hurt when expectations are clear. That's the most cynical thing I've ever heard, Elena said softly. Maybe. Or maybe it's just honest. His eyes met hers. Which you said you prefer. The timer dinged, saving Elena from having to respond. As she plated the food, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was seeing something true about Damien Blackwood, something he didn't show anyone else. Over the next few weeks, Elena continued her pickup duties, but now she saw them through a different lens. She started conversations with the women, learned their stories. Jessica's daughter had special needs, and the custody battle was to protect her from an abusive ex. Priya's mother had early onset Alzheimer's and needed specialized care. Sophia's brother was in remission, but the experimental treatment had worked. Each woman spoke of Damien with genuine affection. But there was always a wall there, a recognition that what they had was temporary, transactional, and ultimately empty of real intimacy. He's a good man, Sophia told Elena during one drive. But he's terrified of letting anyone actually see him. We all know the score. We get what we need, he gets. I don't know. The illusion of connection without the risk? Elena found herself thinking about Damien constantly. About the loneliness she saw in his eyes when he thought no one was watching. About how he paced at night like a caged animal. About the way he'd looked at her when she called his arrangement sad. She was developing feelings for her employer. It was unprofessional, dangerous, and completely inevitable. The crisis came on a Thursday evening. Elena was supposed to pick up a new woman, Charlotte Davis, a marketing director from Damien's Manhattan office. But when Elena arrived at the agreed-upon location, Charlotte was drunk, belligerent, and accompanied by two equally intoxicated friends. You're the maid? Charlotte sneered. The one who drives us around like we're Uber passengers. Ems Davis, Mr. Blackwood is expecting you. Mr. Blackwood can wait. Or better yet, he can go himself. She laughed shrilly. You know what he is? He's a John. And we're all his whores. Expensive whores, sure. But that's what this is. Elena felt anger flash through her. That's not fair. He's helping you. Helping? He's buying us. Like we're products. Charlotte's voice rose, drawing attention from other patrons. My mother's dying, and I have to pretend to like him to afford her hospice care. How is that helping? One of Charlotte's friends touched her arm. Char, maybe we should. But Charlotte shook her off, focusing on Elena with alcohol-glazed eyes. Does he AFK you too? Or are you just the one who delivers the merchandise? The slap happened before Elena could think. Her palm connected with Charlotte's face with a crack that silenced the entire bar. Charlotte stared at her in shock. Then her face crumpled. She began to cry, huge, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and broken. Elena's anger evaporated instantly. She wrapped her arms around the other woman as Charlotte collapsed against her, whispering apologies and regrets and fears about her mother, about herself, about everything. "I'm so sorry," Charlotte kept saying. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it. I hate myself for needing his help, for not being strong enough to do it alone." Elena held her while she cried, while her friends awkwardly tried to help, while the bartender discreetly looked away. And she realized that Damien was wrong. This arrangement wasn't protecting anyone's dignity. It was destroying it bit by bit, turning genuine need into something that felt shameful. She drove Charlotte home instead of to the Hamptons, making sure she got inside safely. Then she called Damien. "She's not coming," Elena said without preamble. A pause. "Is she all right?" "No." "None of them are all right, Damien. This has to stop." "Elena, I'll be back in 2 hours. We need to talk." She hung up before he could respond. Truth and consequences. Elena found Damien in his study, the desk lamp casting shadows across his face. He looked up when she entered, and she saw something she'd never seen before in his expression: fear. "You're quitting," he said flatly. "I should. This whole thing is." She stopped, took a breath. "Called all of them whores. Is that what you want? For these women to hate themselves for needing help?" Damien flinched as if she'd struck him. "I never meant." "I know. I know you think you're protecting their pride, giving them dignity. But you're not. You're teaching them that their worth is something that can be bought, that needing help makes them less than human." He stood abruptly, turning to the window. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. "What else am I supposed to do? Just write checks? Play the benevolent billionaire handing out charity?" "Yes." Elena moved closer. "Yes, because that's what it is. Charity isn't a dirty word, Damien. Sometimes people need help, and the kindest thing you can do is give it without asking them to perform for it. You don't understand." His voice was rough. "Everyone performs for me. Everyone wants something. The only honest transactions I have are the ones where we both acknowledge what we're trading." "That's not true." "Isn't it?" He turned to face her. "What about you, Elena? You took this job because you needed money for your brother's medical bills. Don't think I don't know. I know everything about the people who work for me. You're here because you need something too." Elena felt her face flush. "I needed a job, yes. But I'm not pretending to like you to get it. I'm not performing. Aren't you?" He stepped closer, and she could smell the scotch on his breath, see the pain in his eyes. "You laugh at my jokes. You cook meals you think I'll like. You defend me to women who call me a John. If that's not performing, what is it?" Her heart pounded. They were inches apart now, and she could feel the heat radiating from his body. "It's called human decency. It's called caring about someone. Caring." He said the word like it was foreign. "For a paycheck. For you, you idiot." The words came out before she could stop them. "I care about you. Not your money, not your power. You. The man who paces at 2 a.m. because he can't sleep. Who remembers that I like Earl Grey tea. Who reads philosophy books and leaves them lying around like he's ashamed of it. Who's so terrified of being used that he's turned every relationship in his life into a transaction." Damien stared at her, something cracking in his expression. "Elena." "I'm not performing," she whispered. "And if you can't tell the difference between someone who genuinely cares about you and someone who's playing a role, then you're more lost than I thought." He kissed her then, or maybe she kissed him later. She wouldn't be able to say who moved first. His hands cupped her face, her fingers tangled in his hair, and for a moment there was nothing but the taste of him, the feeling of his heart racing against hers. Then he pulled back abruptly, stepping away like she'd burned him. "This is a mistake," he said, his voice hoarse. "Why?" "Because you work for me. Because there's a power imbalance. Because you said it yourself. You needed this job for your brother." "My brother's bills are paid off," Elena said quietly. "Miguel had his last surgery 2 weeks ago. He's going to be fine." Damien's eyes widened. Then why are you still here? Because I choose to be. Because despite everything, despite this insane arrangement you have with these women, despite your cynicism and your walls, I think you're worth knowing. She took a breath. But I can't keep doing the pickups. I can't be part of something that hurts people, even if they've agreed to it. So you're quitting after all? I'm setting a boundary. The household work, I'll keep doing. But the dating service, she shook her head. End it. Help these women if you want to help them, but stop asking them to pretend it's something it's not. Damien sank into his chair, looking suddenly exhausted. And if I don't, then I leave. Because I can't. I can't have feelings for someone who won't let himself be real with anyone, who hides behind transactions and arrangements instead of just being human. The silence stretched between them, heavy with possibility and fear. Finally, Damien spoke. I don't know how to do this differently. Then learn, Elena said gently. Start with the truth. Stop the fake dates. If you want to help people, help them. If you want connection, stop buying it. And you? His voice was barely audible. What do you want? Elena crossed to him, kneeling beside his chair so they were eye level. I want you to take a chance. To try being with someone who isn't here for your money or your power. Who sees you, really sees you, and stays anyway. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. I'm scared. I know. So am I. What if I mess this up? What if I? She kissed him softly, silencing his fears. Then we'll figure it out. Together. Like real people do. Reconstruction. The next morning, Damien called an emergency meeting with Mrs. Pemberton and his attorney. By noon, he'd drafted a new policy for his companies, an emergency assistance fund for employees facing family crises. No strings attached, no performances required. Just help when it was needed. He personally called each of the women Elena had been picking up. The conversations were awkward, painful, but necessary. He apologized for making them uncomfortable, explained the new fund, assured them their jobs were secure regardless of whether they accepted additional help. Charlotte cried on the phone. So did Jessica. Sophia simply said, "Thank you for finally being honest." This is terrifying, Damien admitted to Elena that evening. They were sitting on the terrace overlooking the ocean, sharing a bottle of wine. Being this exposed. Welcome to the human race, Elena said, squeezing his hand. What if they sue? What if this gets out to the press? What if? What if it's fine? Elena interrupted gently. What if doing the right thing doesn't have to end in disaster? He looked at her for a long moment. When did you get so wise? I grew up poor in the Bronx with a single mother and a baby brother to help raise. You learn wisdom fast when falling means everyone you love falls with you. Damien lifted her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. Tell me about them. Your family. I know the facts from your file, but tell me the real story. So she did. She told him about her mother who worked 3 jobs and still made it to every school play. About Miguel's diabetes diagnosis at 12 and how they'd all learned to manage it together. About her father's death from a heart attack when she was 15, and how it had shaped everything that came after. We weren't just surviving, she said. We were living. We had each other, and that was enough, even when it was hard. I envy that, Damien said quietly. My parents were alive until I was 23, and I never felt like we had each other. Just proximity. Wealth. Tell me about them. He did. And for the first time in years, Damien Blackwood talked about his life without performing, without walls, without pretending to be anything other than what he was. A man who'd been given everything except genuine connection, and who'd spent his adult life trying to fill that void with transactions he could control. I don't know if I'm capable of a real relationship, he admitted as the sun set over the water. I don't know if I've got whatever wiring it takes to be normal, vulnerable. You're doing it right now, Elena pointed out. This is different. You're different. Then maybe that's enough. Maybe we figure it out as we go. He pulled her close, and they sat in silence as the sky turned from gold to purple to black, the ocean constant and patient before them. Going public. 3 weeks later, a tabloid ran a story. Billionaire Blackwood's sick scheme, preying on desperate female employees. The article was vicious, painting Damien as a predator and the women as victims. Anonymous sources claimed he'd coerced employees into relationships in exchange for financial help. The internet erupted. Elena found Damien in his study, staring at his computer screen with a look of pure devastation. "They're calling for my resignation from my own companies," he said hollowly. "The board is meeting tomorrow. I'm trending on Twitter. Number 3, right after a political scandal and a celebrity divorce. Damien, you should go. Distance yourself before this touches you too." "Absolutely not." Elena pulled up a chair beside him. "We fight this together." "How?" "Everything they're saying is technically true. I did have those arrangements. I did tie financial help to personal time. But you stopped. You changed the policy. You're doing things differently now. That doesn't undo what I did." Elena thought for a moment. "Then maybe we need to own it. The truth. All of it. Not the spin, the actual story. You want me to admit everything publicly? I want you to tell the truth. That you handled a situation badly, that you've learned from it, that you're making amends." She took his hand. People respect honesty more than perfection. The next day, instead of hiding or issuing a typical corporate non-apology, Damien held a press conference. Elena stood backstage, watching him on the monitor. "I'm here to address the allegations in yesterday's article," he began, his voice steady despite his obvious nerves. "And the truth is, most of them are accurate. I did arrange to spend personal time with employees who needed financial assistance. At the time, I thought I was protecting their dignity by making it feel less like charity. I was wrong." The press room erupted in shouted questions. Damien held up a hand. "Let me finish. I convinced myself that this arrangement was mutually beneficial, that it allowed these women to maintain their pride while getting help they desperately needed. But I failed to see that I was actually creating a situation where they felt they had to perform emotional labor to receive assistance that should have been freely given." He detailed the new emergency fund, the no-strings-attached policy, his personal outreach to every woman involved. "I can't undo what I did. I can only acknowledge it was wrong and commit to doing better. Some of you will forgive this. Many won't. But I owe it to the women I hurt, however unintentionally, to be honest about my mistakes." A reporter shouted out, "Are you romantically involved with your maid?" Elena's breath caught. This was it. The moment Damien would either retreat to his old ways or continue forward into uncertainty. He met the camera's eye. "I'm in a relationship with Elena Martinez, yes. She works for me, which I acknowledge creates complications. But she's the person who made me see how wrong my previous arrangements were. She's the one who demanded better from me. And she's here by choice, not because of any financial pressure or power imbalance." Another shouted question. "How do we know that's true?" "You don't," Damien said simply. "You'll have to decide whether to believe me. But I'm done hiding who I am and what I've done. This is me trying to be better. That's all I can offer." The fallout was mixed. Some praised Damien's honesty. Others called it a PR stunt. 3 board members demanded his resignation. 5 defended him. The women from his previous arrangements gave statements to the press, all of them surprisingly supportive. "He messed up," Jessica Williams told CNN. "But he owned it and changed. That's more than most powerful men ever do." Sophia Chen wrote an op-ed for The Times titled, "When Second Chances Matter: Billionaire Accountability and Real Reform." Charlotte Davis appeared on Good Morning America. "Was the arrangement weird? Yeah. Did it help my family when we had nowhere else to turn? Also, yeah. He's fixing it now. That should count for something." Public opinion slowly shifted, not entirely in Damien's favor, but enough. The board vote ended in his favor, 8-4. His company's stock dipped, but recovered. Life, somehow, continued. "I can't believe that worked," Damien said to Elena a week later. They were in her quarters. He'd started spending more time there than in his own suite, claiming he liked how real it felt. "Honesty usually does," Elena said, curled against him on her small couch. "People can smell BT from a mile away, but they respond to genuine accountability. I got a call from Victoria today." "My ex." Elena stiffened slightly. "Oh." "She wanted back in. Said she'd been wrong about me, that she could see I'd changed." He tightened his arm around Elena. "I told her that ship had sailed, that I'd found someone who liked me even when I was being weak and disappointing." Elena smiled against his chest. "You're not disappointing. I'm a work in progress." "Are we all?" They sat in comfortable silence until Damien spoke again. "Mrs. Pemberton wants to retire. She says it's time. that the household needs new energy or some such. He paused. I was thinking of not replacing her. Maybe just simplifying. Less staff, more actual life. That sounds nice. Would you stay? Not as staff, just as you. We could figure out the logistics, but I want you here because you want to be here, not because you work for me. Elena sat up to look at him properly. Are you firing me? I'm asking you to be my girlfriend without the complication of also being my employee. You can still live here if you want, or get your own place, or I'm doing this badly, aren't I? She kissed him. You're doing fine. And yes, I'll stay. As me, not as your maid. Though your cooking is really good, I'll still cook for you. Sometimes. When you've earned it. He grinned, and Elena realized it was the first time she'd seen him look genuinely happy, not the polished satisfaction of a successful businessman, but real joy. Moving forward. 6 months later, Elena sat in a cafe in Manhattan, across from Charlotte Davis. What had started as an awkward apology meeting had evolved into something like friendship. How is your mother? Elena asked. Charlotte's smile was tinged with sadness. She passed last month, peacefully at home with all of us there. The hospice care from Damien's fund made that possible. I'm so sorry. Don't be. It was good. As good as it could be. Charlotte took a sip of her coffee. I wanted to tell you something. I'm starting a nonprofit to help families dealing with terminal illness navigate the financial and emotional aspects. Damien's providing the startup capital, but it's my project. That's wonderful. I was hoping you might want to be involved. You have a gift for seeing what people need, even when they're too proud to ask for it. Elena considered. Since leaving her formal position with Damien, she'd been drifting, unsure what came next. Tell me more. They spent 2 hours discussing the vision, the possibilities. By the time Elena left, she felt energized in a way she hadn't in months. She met Damien for dinner at a small Italian place in Greenwich Village, their favorite spot because no one bothered them there, and the pasta was exceptional. You're glowing, he observed as she sat down. Charlotte offered me a job. Well, a partnership really, for her new nonprofit. And I think I'm going to do it. She waited for his reaction, suddenly nervous. They were still figuring out this new dynamic, still learning how to be together without the complications of employer-employee. Damien reached across the table for her hand. That's perfect. You'll be amazing at it. You're not upset. We'll see less of each other. I'll have my own thing. Elena, I never want to be the thing that holds you back. We're partners, not, he grimaced. Not a transaction. Look at you, using healthy relationship terminology. I've been reading books. Self-help stuff. Very embarrassing. They smiled as he said it. They ordered too much food and shared it, talking about everything and nothing. About Miguel's progress in physical therapy, about Damien's sister reaching out after seeing the press conference, about Elena's mother's reaction to meeting him. She asked if you were good to me. I said yes. She said good because she knows where you live. After dinner, they walked through Washington Square Park, bundled against the November cold. Street musicians played, and students from NYU hurried past, and the city hummed with life all around them. I never noticed this before, Damien said, gesturing vaguely at the scene. How beautiful normal life is. I was always too busy, too focused on the next deal, the next acquisition. And now? Now I'm right where I want to be. He pulled her close. Thank you. For what? For slapping me out of my artificial existence. Metaphorically speaking. Elena laughed. I literally slapped Charlotte, remember? That too. Though I'm glad you haven't had to slap me yet. The night is young. They walked until the cold drove them to find a cab. In the back seat, Elena rested her head on Damien's shoulder, feeling content in a way that still surprised her. This wasn't the life she'd imagined when she took that job interview with Mrs. Pemberton. But it was better, messy, and real and completely unscripted. Implications. The text came at 3 a.m. Turn on the news. Elena fumbled for her phone, squinting at the screen. It was from Priya. She shook Damien awake. He'd stayed over at her new apartment in Brooklyn, a space she'd rented with her own money from consulting work with Charlotte's nonprofit. What's wrong? He mumbled. I don't know. Priya said to turn on the news. The first channel showed a familiar face. James Blackwood, Damien's estranged uncle. He was giving an interview on a late-night business program. My nephew is a disgrace to the Blackwood name, James was saying, his silver hair perfectly coiffed, his expression one of practiced concern. This so-called reformation is a PR stunt. The board should have removed him when they had the chance. Is this about the emergency fund? The interviewer asked. It's about a pattern of poor judgment and questionable ethics. The fund is just the latest example. I'm calling for a special meeting to address Damien's fitness to lead. Damien's face had gone pale. James hasn't spoken to me in 7 years. Why now? Elena's mind was racing. What does he gain from this? He's the largest minority shareholder. If he can get me removed. Damien ran a hand through his hair. He could install himself as CEO, or sell his shares at a premium to someone who would. The next few days were a blur of emergency meetings, legal consultations, and damage control. James gave interview after interview, painting Damien as unstable and unfit. He dredged up the arrangements with the female employees, framing them in the worst possible light despite the women's own statements to the contrary. He's twisting everything, Elena said, watching another news segment. They were in Damien's Hampton estate, preparing for a board meeting that could determine his future with the company. That's what James does. He twists. Damien's voice was bitter. When my parents died, he tried to get control of their estate. Said I was too young, too inexperienced. The wool was ironclad, but he's been waiting for an opening ever since. What about your sister? Would she support you? Isabel? Damien shook his head. We haven't spoken since our parents' funeral. She blamed me for their deaths. How could she? I was supposed to go sailing with them that day. I canceled last minute for a business meeting. She said if I'd been there, maybe I could have done something. He looked away. Maybe she was right. Elena's heart broke for him. Damien, you can't. I know. Logically, I know it wasn't my fault. But logic doesn't undo 12 years of guilt. A plan was forming in Elena's mind. Where is Isabel now? Paris, last I heard. Why? Because you need allies. And family. Even estranged family matters. She pulled out her phone. I'm going to find her. Elena, don't. If she wanted to talk to me, she would have reached out. Or maybe she's been waiting for you to reach out. Maybe she's as stubborn and proud as you are. Elena was already typing. Sometimes people need permission to forgive Damien. Sometimes they need to know they're wanted. It took 3 hours and help from a private investigator Damien's lawyers recommended. But Elena got a phone number, an email address. And at 2 a.m. New York time, 8 a.m. Paris time, she sent a message to Isabel Blackwood. Your brother needs you. Not his money, not his company. Him. And I think maybe you need him too. The response came 6 hours later. A single word. When? Elena bought Isabel a plane ticket. First class. Leaving that afternoon. Damien didn't know. She was terrified she'd overstepped, that this would blow up in her face. But as she'd watched him prepare for the board meeting, watched him carry the weight of his guilt and loneliness, she'd known she had to try. Isabel Blackwood arrived at JFK at 7 p.m. the next day. Elena picked her up personally, driving the Mercedes she'd once used for Damien's dates, a vehicle that now felt like a relic from another life. Isabel was taller than Elena expected, with Damien's dark hair and the same storm gray eyes. She was elegant in a way that spoke of European fashion and old money. But there were dark circles under her eyes and tension in her shoulders. I don't know why I came, were her first words as she got in the car. Because you miss your brother. I hate my brother. Maybe. Or maybe you've just been hurt and angry for so long you've forgotten what else you feel. Isabel was silent for a long moment. Who are you to him? Really? I'm the person who loves him, Elena said simply. And who wants him to stop punishing himself for things that weren't his fault. You think he punishes himself? I think you both do. The drive to the Hamptons took 2 hours. Isabel spent most of it staring out the window, occasionally asking questions about Damien, what he was like now, whether he was happy, if he ever talked about their parents. He carries them with him every day, Elena said. The guilt, the grief. It's like a weight he won't put down. Good, Isabel said, but her voice cracked on the word. When they arrived at the estate, Damien was on the terrace. He turned at the sound of the car, and Elena watched his expression cycle through confusion, recognition, and something that looked like hope. Isabel? His sister stood frozen, her hands clenched at her sides. Damien. They stared at each other across the driveway. Two people who shared blood and history and a chasm of pain. I'll just. Elena gestured vaguely toward the house, giving them privacy. Wait. Isabel's voice stopped her. Please stay. I might need someone who isn't. She trailed off, but her meaning was clear. So Elena stood to the side as brother and sister faced each other for the first time in 12 years. I didn't think you'd come, Damien said finally. I didn't think I would either. Isabel wrapped her arms around herself. I saw the news. Uncle James is being vicious. When isn't he? Why didn't you call me? When all of this started, when you needed, she stopped, frustrated. Why her? She gestured at Elena. Why does your girlfriend know how to reach me when you clearly don't? Because I thought you hated me, Damien said quietly. Because every time I started to call, I remembered what you said at the funeral, that it should have been me who died. Isabel flinched. I didn't mean, I was 21 and they were gone and I was so angry. You meant it. And you were right to mean it. No. The word came out fierce. No, I wasn't. I was a stupid kid who needed someone to blame, and you were there. Tears were streaming down her face now. I've regretted those words every single day for 12 years, Damien. Every day. But I didn't know how to take them back. Damien crossed to her in 3 long strides, pulling her into a hug. Isabel collapsed against him, sobbing, and he held her like he was afraid she might disappear. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry too. I'm sorry too. Elena quietly slipped away, letting them have their reunion. She found Mrs. Pemberton in the kitchen. The older woman had delayed her retirement to help with the current crisis. Did Miss Isabel come? Mrs. Pemberton asked. She did. Good. Those two have been broken apart long enough. She handed Elena a cup of tea. You're good for him, you know. You make him remember he's human. I think that's the nicest thing you've ever said to me. Mrs. Pemberton almost smiled. Don't get used to it. The board meeting. Isabel stood beside Damien at the board meeting, her presence alone making a statement. James Blackwood's expression when he saw his niece was almost worth the price of admission. Isabel, darling, he said smoothly. What a surprise. I didn't realize you were back in the country. I came to support my brother, she said coldly, and to oppose your ridiculous motion. This isn't personal, it's business. It's absolutely personal. You've been trying to steal the company from our family since our parents died. This is just your latest attempt. The meeting was brutal. James presented his case. Damien's questionable judgment, the negative press, the risk to shareholder value. He had charts data, carefully edited clips from interviews. Then it was Damien's turn. He spoke about the changes he'd implemented. The emergency fund that had helped 300 employees in 6 months. The improved retention rates and employee satisfaction scores. The partnerships with nonprofits that had enhanced the company's reputation in ways that couldn't be bought. I made mistakes, he said. I won't pretend otherwise. But I've learned from them. I've grown. And this company has grown with me. Isabel spoke next, talking about their parents' vision for the company, about legacy and responsibility. She was eloquent and passionate, and Elena could see the board members responding. But the real turning point came from an unexpected source. Sophia Chen stood up in the gallery. She wasn't a board member, but as head of the company's AI division, she had the right to speak. I'm one of the women from Mr. Blackwood's previous arrangements, she said, and the room went silent. And I'm here to tell you that yes, those arrangements were flawed, but they came from a genuine desire to help. And when he realized they were causing harm, he stopped. Immediately. No hesitation, no excuses. She looked directly at James. Some of us in this room have made mistakes that we've never owned up to, that we've covered up and denied. Damien Blackwood admitted this publicly, took responsibility, and changed. That's the kind of leader I want for this company. One by one, other women stood up. Jessica, Bea, even Charlotte, who'd flown in from California. They all echoed the same message. Accountability matters. Growth matters. Real change matters. When the vote came, it was decisive. 11-1 in Damien's favor. James abstained, his face mottled with rage. As they left the boardroom, Damien pulled Elena aside. You did this, he said, getting Isabel here, coordinating with the women. I made some phone calls. They chose to come. Elena. She kissed him. not caring that they were in a corporate hallway where anyone could see. You're worth fighting for. I wish you'd believe that. I'm starting to. That night, they celebrated at the Hampton estate. Isabel was there, and Mrs. Pemberton, and Miguel, who'd flown in with their mother. Sophia and Jessica came, and Charlotte with her new girlfriend. It was chaotic and loud and completely wonderful. Elena watched Damien with his sister, saw how they kept gravitating toward each other like magnets after years of forced separation, saw how he laughed at Miguel's terrible jokes and charmed her mother with his genuine interest in her stories. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. Not the billionaire, not the CEO, but the person beneath all of that, flawed and trying and finally letting himself be real. You're staring, Damien said, appearing beside her with 2 glasses of wine. I'm allowed. You're my boyfriend. Is that what I am? What else would you be? He set down the wine glasses and took both her hands. Elena Martinez, would you consider being more than my girlfriend? Her heart stopped. Damien. I'm not proposing. Not yet. I know we need more time. He squeezed her hands. But I want you to know that's where this is heading. For me. You're not just my girlfriend. You're my partner. My best friend. The person I want to build a life with. Elena felt tears prick her eyes. You're really bad at not proposing. Is that a yes to considering it? It's a yes to everything, she said. To more time, to building a life, to wherever this goes. It's a yes to you. They kissed, and somewhere in the house, Miguel wolf whistled. Elena laughed against Damien's lips, feeling joy bubble up from somewhere deep inside. 1 year later, the gala was Elena's idea, a fundraiser for Charlotte's nonprofit, which had grown beyond anyone's expectations. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was filled with New York's elite, but also with the people the nonprofit had helped. Families who'd navigated impossible choices and come out the other side. Elena wore a deep blue gown that Isabel had helped her pick out in Paris. Damien was in a classic tuxedo, but he'd let her talk him into a blue pocket square that matched her dress. You look beautiful, he whispered as they posed for photos. You say that every day. It's true every day. They worked the room together, Damien introducing Elena not as his girlfriend but as his partner, in every sense of the word. She was on the board of Charlotte's nonprofit now, and she'd started consulting with other companies on employee assistance programs. Isabel arrived with her new boyfriend, a French artist who made Damien hilariously uncomfortable with discussions of postmodern sculpture. Miguel came with Elena's mother, both of them dressed to the nines and clearly enjoying the open bar. The speeches started after dinner. Charlotte spoke about the families they'd helped, the lives they'd changed. Sophia announced a new partnership with 3 tech companies to create industry-wide support funds. Then Damien took the stage. A year and a half ago, I was called out publicly for behavior that, while well-intentioned, was ultimately harmful. I could have hidden from that criticism. I could have issued a non-apology and moved on. But someone in my life refused to let me take the easy way out. He looked directly at Elena. She demanded better from me. And in doing so, she showed me what real accountability looks like, what genuine connection feels like, what it means to be loved not for what you can provide, but for who you actually are. Elena's eyes filled with tears. This nonprofit exists because she wouldn't let me keep making the same mistakes. Because she insisted that helping people means respecting their dignity, not creating complicated transactions. Everything good that's come from this situation, the fund, the partnerships, the lives changed, it all started with her refusing to accept my excuses. He came down from the stage, and Elena's heart started racing. This wasn't in the program. So I'm using this very public moment to ask a very personal question. He knelt, pulling a small box from his pocket. Elena Martinez, will you marry me? The ballroom erupted in gasps and applause. Elena was crying, laughing, and trying to breathe all at once. You said you weren't going to propose yet, she managed. I lied. I've been carrying this ring for 3 months waiting for the right moment. He opened the box, revealing a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Say yes so I can stop being terrified you'll say no. Yes, she said, pulling him to his feet. Yes, obviously yes. They kissed while the room cheered, and Elena thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first awkward meeting with Mrs. Pemberton, through the strange world of pickups and arrangements, through crisis and confrontation and learning to be real with each other. It hadn't been easy. It had been messy and complicated and sometimes painful. but it had been worth it. As Damien slipped the ring onto her finger, Elena looked around the room, at Charlotte helping a family navigate their first fundraising meeting, at Sophia laughing with board members who'd once questioned her worth, at Isabel dancing with Miguel while Elena's mother looked on indulgently. At all these lives changed not by money alone, but by the harder work of actually seeing people, of respecting their dignity, of showing up with genuine care instead of transactions. What are you thinking? Damien asked, his arm around her waist. That we did okay. With all of this, we did better than okay. He kissed her temple. We did real. And in the end, Elena thought, as they returned to their table surrounded by friends and family, that was all anyone could really ask for. Not perfection, not performance, but something genuine, messy and imperfect and beautifully, impossibly real. The maid who'd been hired to pick up girls for her boss had instead picked up the pieces of a broken man and helped him build something better. And in doing so, she built something better for herself too. That was a story worth telling. And it was only just beginning.